That's my wall.
Should be good. Wow.
I looked out.
All right. Ready when you are.
Water is this high, this guts.
That's what it's going.
Oh.
I'd like to call the Maumelle City Council meeting to order. The first order of business is I'd like to wish everyone a happy new year and a prosperous 2016. At this time, I've asked City Clerk Joshua Clausen to lead us in invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the opportunity we have to gather here this evening and do the business in this great city which we live in. Father, we pray at this time for all those who are in need. We pray for Debbie Watson as she recovers from some injuries, and just pray for any who are struggling and in need, and pray that Thou would be mindful of them. Father, at this time of year, as people make New Year's resolutions, we pray that we might all resolve to do a little bit better, that we might find opportunities to serve others, to look for those in need, and to reach out to them. Pray that Thy Spirit will be with us as we consider the business of this city, and pray for all of those who serve in this community and serve and protect this great nation. And pray for that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Next item of business is special guests and announcements, and we don't have any of those. Next item is the approval of the minutes of the December 21st regular meeting. All the council members have a copy of those minutes in their packets. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of December 21st. Is there any discussion on that motion? Alderman Lewis?
Just wanted to add one thing, Mr. Mayor. The minutes accurately reflect the meeting when I'd asked you about the cost for rebidding the Senior Wellness Center. The minutes do say that at the time you didn't have an answer for that, but just wanted to let everyone know that Mr. Mayor, in appropriate, typical fashion, got with me, I think, very next day, and so provided that information. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you very much. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item is public comment, and I have several comment cards, but all but one of those are on items that are on the regular agenda, and so at this time we'll hear from the one that is not on the regular agenda. We have Mr. Victor Werner. If you would, state your name and address for the record, if you would, Mr. Werner.
Victor Werner, 7 Leisurewood Lane. First of all, I'd just like to thank everyone for their service to the city. I wanted to take a few minutes today to talk about the Maumelle Players and the Maumelle Youth Theater. It's been a while since we've been to City Council for an update on those two organizations. But just as an update, the Maumelle Players are a community theater group, and we started performing in the city in 2005. The Youth Theater had their first production in 2003. Between the two organizations, we've produced 27 programs, a couple of drama workshops, and have organized, sponsored, and produced with the City of Maumelle the Veterans Day ceremony since 2010. We also participate in Fourth Fest with the reading of the Declaration of Independence. Our organizations are all volunteer-led. Nobody is paid. We've entertained thousands of Maumelle citizens and visitors to our city. Actors and patrons come from outside of the city, have eaten in our local restaurants. We performed at Keary's Event Center, Maumelle Middle School, First United Methodist Church, the city's Senior Wellness Center, Shepherd of Peace Lutheran Church, and most recently at Little Scholars Academy on Maumelle Boulevard. We're currently homeless and looking for a permanent home. We prefer to be within the city boundaries. We've been outside a couple of times because we are the Maumelle Players, not the almost Maumelle Players. So today we come to the city, not to ask you for money because we know you don't have any, but to help the city realize that adding an arts presence or continuing arts presence to our city makes it an even more attractive place to live than it already is. The opportunity to see your children and grandchildren educated in the dramatic arts and the fine arts helps them become well-rounded citizens and members of the community. This spring, we are jumping to a rather major production. We're planning to produce Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Some of you may have heard of that Broadway musical. But as it is a major musical, it also requires major money. But again, we're not asking the city for any money, but we are asking you that to use your influence and contacts to help us raise some money for the show. In order to put that show on, we need to begin with a minimum of $3,000 for the royalties and other things, and also maybe to use some of your contacts to help us find a home. The high school really doesn't work because it's too large and too expensive. Anyway, we raise money through sponsorships, program ads, or donations. We are a nonprofit 501c3, so any donations made to the players is tax deductible. We educate young people in the dramatic arts, and so we are happy to be a part of the community. We also look for volunteers. It takes volunteers to build a community theater, and it helps to build community as well. And we've got a couple of aldermen here who have been involved or are continuing involved, Marion Scott and Ken Saunders. And we appreciate you, and we leave a little information here on the table for you or any people here that are interested.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Werner. Alderman Saunders?
Victor, just as a matter of information, if someone does have contributions, wants to participate, or if they know of a potential location for the Maumelle Players and future plays in the Children's Theater, how can they get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me by calling my cell phone at 501-352-4239, or they can go to our website, themaumelleplayers.org, and you'll have a contact email there, info@maumelleplayers.org.
Okay.
All right.
Are you in the phone book also?
I presume I am. I haven't looked at a phone book in probably about 10 years, so.
Google.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warner. All right, so the plea is to help them find a venue for a performance and then some sponsorships for their upcoming performance. And I assume that's the youth theater that's doing the Joseph and the Technicolor Coat?
They are part of it.
Okay, it's combined, okay. All right, next item is the financial statement review, and we do that at the second meeting of each month. Next item is procedural motion. I need a motion from the floor to read all resolutions and ordinances by title only tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion second to read all resolutions and ordinances by title only tonight. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item under unfinished business is third reading of ordinance number 895, releasing, vacating, abandoning Lake Point Place. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
Being enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 895, an ordinance releasing, vacating, and abandoning the City of Maumelle's rights, together with the rights of the public generally, in and to the street designated as Lake Point Place and for other purposes.
Okay, I have two public comment cards on this item, and so as normal, we would like to go ahead and hear from the public, and then we'll take comments from the council members. First card I have is from Mr. Jerry Poole.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. If you'd come to the podium, Mr. Poole, and state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Jerry Poole. I live at 600 Pine Forest in Lakeview Place. I've been a Maumelle resident since 1986, or 1986. And I'm here to ask the council not to do the third reading because of some issues that I have discovered and some state law that I have discovered that I think will clear this up a little bit. I went by planning and zoning, or Jim Nary's office today. I think most of you have this. It's nice and it's pretty, but it's not legal because it's not signed. It's not approved by the Planning Commission. Now, you can do a wink and a nod, but that's not approval. and it's not in the minutes. And so therefore it's not legal. And I want to be sure that everybody understands that it's not legal, and it interferes with the rights, I believe, of Lakeview Place and the value of Lakeview Place and the tenants and the office holders in Lakeview Place. And while I'm not opposed to the school, I'm opposed to getting the cart before the horse. And that's what we've got. That's what this ordinance is, the cart before the horse. Because we're saying, okay, we're going to give you this piece of land and you can use it for whatever you wish, but we don't have a filed master plan. We don't have everything that we need for the city to look at and make a decision before they start giving away land. Now, the reason that's a big issue is because I have an opinion from the Attorney General, and I'll paraphrase it. It's from 1993, Winston Bryant, and it says, this is a response to your request for an opinion on whether the city of Dumas can give city-owned property to the state or to a private entity. And it absolutely says no, it cannot be done. And so we're in a position that if you try to enact this ordinance, then you're putting yourself, each one of you is putting yourself in a position of being civilly, criminally liable because the state law says you can't do it. And I just got this at 5 o'clock. That's why I was late trying to get it printed off, and I'll be glad to give it to Caleb and let him go through it and read it. I don't have a problem if you want to do that, or anybody else can have a copy of it. But it's what we're trying to do is not legal. And I'm adamantly opposed to it because I don't think enough diligence has been pursued regarding this entire area. And part of the reason for that is at one time I owned 9 acres, which was the softball field where the school owns now, and everything else around there. Now, I sold the city part of it. I sold other entities part of it. But what we're trying to do is put 1,100 students in an area that the school doesn't own but 4 to 4.5, maybe 5 acres, and the city owns the other 4 to 4.5 acres, meaning where the pine tree is, where the tennis court is, where this street is, and so forth. So we're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, and it just doesn't fit. Now, you know, I didn't make the decision for the school to start trying to build a high school, a junior high school, and everything there. Very few school districts in this state have high school, junior high, and elementary all in the same location. And I dare say any of them have it in less than 5 acres of only school-owned property. So we're making it's a bad decision, and I started this out simply trying to negotiate and get the road selection done so that we got a safety plan and a traffic plan. But that fell by the wayside when I found out that we had a plan that was moving ahead a whole lot faster without the proper discussion and looking at it. And I doubt if 18,000 people in Maumelle saw this, they would approve and say, oh yeah, that's the perfect way to use that space there, is to try to do all this. And so I'm asking you tonight to not pass the ordinance, not do the last reading, and to require the school to pay for an architectural and also engineering study that I will meet with Mike, the mayor, and the school board, Rob, and we can pick an architecture and an engineering person to do that. Not who the school wants, not who I want, not who Mike wants, but who the three of us, the way it's done always, can come to an agreement on, all right, let's let this firm do it. And let's get something put together that goes back through planning and zoning that'll be fair for the city, fair for the school, and fair for Lakeview Place. Now, I'll entertain any questions that anybody might have.
May I see the AG opinion that you brought, Mr. Poole? While everybody's visiting a little bit more, I'd like to.
I think Alderman Norris would like to say something. Or, excuse me, City Attorney Alderman. City Attorney Norris.
A couple things. First of all, I don't need to see the Attorney General's opinion. We can clearly not give public property to a private entity. However, it's undisputed that a city can abandon a street, and there's special provisions in the Arkansas Code that we've been following all the way back to the public hearings, to the wording of this ordinance, is almost verbatim from Arkansas statutes, that a city can abandon a street when either one, it hasn't been used by the public, or two, it is going to be used for schools. So that's a special exemption that they have. And the way road abandonment works is whoever the adjoining property owners to that street, everyone takes ownership up to the midpoint. In this case, it just so happens that all the property owners directly surrounding and touching that street are one entity. So it would default to the center line to those different parcels. Also, with regards to those maps, those are a demonstrative aid. There were some folks that were asking what was going to be happening. Those are not the engineering site plans. Those are not the landscape plans. There will be a replat of all those properties and then a conditional use permit that will also be before the council. It's not just being done based off that sketch. You'll hear more about this one way or another, regardless of what happens.
Well, wouldn't you put that on the back end instead of the front end?
No, actually, because there's a road right down the middle, we can't have them replat and include the road, which is not their property and part of the plat, and they can't apply for the conditional use and submit the site and landscape plans over property that isn't theirs. So the first element, the first step that we're at is to make sure that road is a road that they can build on. And then, in fact, we're expecting or maybe anticipating that there will perhaps be some plans submitted to the Planning Commission this month, provided this passes. But so to answer your question,
now the question is, the only reason that it's not used by the public is that the city has allowed the school to close it off, and that was 10 years ago,
it is being used
or 5 years ago.
But the only destination at the end of that little cul-de-sac, it dead ends in a school, and all the property immediately surrounding it are schools. So it makes sense that the people who used it are the people going to the school. I don't think it's been blocked off that I know of.
Okay. So are you going to give them the land that's got the pine tree on it?
I'm not sure what land you're talking about, but we're just talking about that cul-de-sac of the little strip, the tail end of.
But couldn't you have a projected construction and projected all that and apply through the Planning Commission before you get the cart before the horse? Because when you give it, you can't get it back, right?
I'm not sure I understand. Once the road is abandoned, it's abandoned unless and until they want to rededicate it, which would be up to them. I'd presume if they're not going to build on it, they would want to relinquish the responsibility to have to maintain it back to the city. But you're correct. That would be their call.
Understand.
And there is no plan, and I think you're referring to the land adjacent to the tennis courts. There's no plan to dedicate or give that land to the school. They've not requested it. Not to the best of my knowledge, no one on the council has asked that be done.
But the issue I have is the school could not exist without the city. So we basically have a private entity that we're in partners with. The school does. I guarantee you some child gets hurt, breaks an arm, breaks a leg on that city property that the school uses exclusively. You're talking about a lawsuit.
No, sir, we're not.
So how would we not be involved in a lawsuit?
We have parkland all around there. I mean, that whole area is considered a park. It's open to the public. So anybody could be on that piece of property. So just because the school's using it doesn't make it more likely that a lawsuit would be filed there. The tennis court's there. I mean, someone could trip and fall on the tennis court. That's a public tennis court. It's not exclusively used for the charter school. Lakeville Valencia is there. It's a public park.
Okay. All right. I don't agree with your conclusion.
Okay.
And, you know, let me get that opinion back, and I'll make you all copies of it.
Thank you, Mr. Poole.
Serve it to you. And I'm going to institute, you'll be seeing a Freedom of Information request here tomorrow, probably. But I don't see any reason why we can't wait. I don't see any reason why you don't wait.
And if the council chooses to do that, we can
Okay.
do that. Yes, sir, Mr.
All right.
Poole.
Thank you,
If
guys.
they want to wait on the traffic study, but I believe that the school came to meet, and the question was, what's the first step? And the road abandonment was what everybody deemed needed to be done first. So, on that item.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. The other comment card I have is from Mr. Rob McGill.
Only thing I want to make sure, Rob McGill, 63 River Road Drive West, Mayflower. I just want to make sure that preliminary site plan is exactly what he says. It's just a piece of paper. It's nothing official, and there will be changes to it. But I think Mr. Mosley, Alderman Mosley, wanted to know kind of what the plan was. So that is a preliminary. This is what it could look like, and similar to that. So that's the reason that was provided. Other than that, I'll just answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McGill. Your question. Okay, all right. Alderman Lewis, did you have a question or?
I do. I have a question, and it can be to either you, Mr. Mayor, or to Executive Director McGill. Just to kind of put it into perspective, we're talking about a stretch of street that is, and Mayor, you, the surveyor background, you might be able to ballpark it a little better. 400 feet?
Oh, there's a plat in here that shows
Okay.
the distance. I'd rather do that than.
And are there, and that's fine, and is it, other than across the street going toward the Maumelle Water Management Billing Office, which is not part of this abandonment, Maumelle Charter, Academics Plus Charter School has all of the properties that surround what's left of this street. Is that correct?
All three sides. That's correct. Right,
that-
left, and then from
right. So
north,
that represents
south, north, east, and west.
represents a sizable investment that Academics Plus Charter School has made in the area, but with plans to do, as we've seen, some preliminary drawings for a new high school eventually, some other things down the line, correct?
Right. And this would allow us to get the traffic pattern much better in the future. Even with more kids, we'll get the traffic pattern. Plus, we'll get rid of all the portable buildings in the area and have hard, structured buildings that look like the elementary at this point. So it'll be much more appealing to the eye and much more usable and safer in the future years.
Okay. And this, may come as no consolation to Mr. Poole, but, we have as a community, and as far as street abandonment, City Attorney Norris is correct. I mean, there's a very clear path to how this is done. There's plenty of precedents established. But we're talking about an institution here that has immensely benefited the city of Maumelle. And I would encourage anybody who is near Academics Plus Charter School to capitalize on that benefit of having a successful and thriving school nearby. In case in point, if it can be worked out down the line, the one thing Academics Plus Charter School is going to need is additional space, and there's a property right there. And I'm offering this up to say that there can be a lot of great things when we work together on this, and I realize the change is difficult, but I welcome this kind of growth because we're not accustomed to seeing a lot of growth lately, and I think that this could be a very positive thing. So I still feel good about this as I have all along, and the relationship, and Mr. Swear described that at our last meeting. It might have been a little peculiar when Academics Plus Charter School began, but I think those lines have been very clear since then. And so now we're talking about abandoning a street which is surrounded basically by one street that you occupy and is exclusively used for your traffic. So,
That's right.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to lay all that out there.
Alderman Lewis, it's about 385 feet, so your 400 foot was pretty close.
Okay. Ought to go home on that one.
Okay. Alderman Mosley, did you have a question for Mr. McGill?
Well, it's for everybody, actually.
Four.
I wanted to ask if there's been any. Is there an agreement to whether, by any chance, that you all and the mayor and Pine Forest Elementary and Mr. Poole can get together and maybe talk about the traffic and visit to see that we get everything done the best it can be done to facilitate all this growth that you all are going to need? Is there some cooperation that can be had in this regard?
You know, I don't mind cooperating and doing, but I mean, it's been that, from what I understand, he wants a road to go through the middle of our property. And to do that, you're going to separate putting kids out in a parking lot to have to cross the street. And then either that or put kids out on the driver's side of the car instead of the passenger side, and then they have to cross traffic. So, you know, I don't mind doing that, but, you know, and if the city wants to put a street between Pine Forest and the community center, that's none of mine. You know, as far as Academics Plus, though, we don't need a street going down the middle of the property that we own. We have a plan for with the city, I think, that y'all looked at and have got the funding for the next 2 years to put a street on the the east side of our property. You know, we're willing to do that to get traffic off of him and to have a road that goes right next to him instead of through his parking lot. So, you know,
I admit that I don't know the goings and comings of that area and how all that works or anything. I just know that, and I don't know if the planning department has looked at your long-term plan to see if it can really facilitate all that with the
we've had one preliminary meeting, and they've made some comments, and our architects and engineers are trying to incorporate those comments. But we can't do anything with a plan until this abandonment has happened. The plan is the cart before the horse, because the first thing we have to do is abandon this property so we can develop a plan. That's the first thing we have to do.
Okay. I would encourage all involved to try to work this out, and so that at some point we go, oh, maybe we should have done this or should have done that or something, or maybe we should have, you know, it's there seems to be there appears to be a lot of differences of opinions on how to do things, and so I would certainly appreciate that if you all could make some effort to get together and maybe all of you all to get together and you go, well, yeah, that makes sense, and then we've got it. So
we can have a meeting as long as everybody's willing to meet. So, yeah.
And I'd like to sit in if you have such a meeting. Just try to learn more myself. That's all I'm willing for the second here. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Vapurzian.
These phases, the paper that Mr. Poole showed us, those have been around for a long time.
I'm not sure what he actually
Well,
showed.
the options, different phase 1, phase 2.
Showed what was in the council.
It's the same thing.
That's been around for how long?
Well, those are actually a little bit different from what you had, because we've been able to do a little different because we bought the property between F building and his property.
Expansion plans for Academics Plus have been around for as long as you've been around.
Since I've been there, we've been wanting to go to 1,300, and even this council has actually approved us going to the state saying, yes, we want you to go to 1,300.
We've encouraged and backed that. Second of all, the property that was sold by Mr. Poole was sold a long time ago. And so if I sold you a car, Mr. McGill, 10 years later I come back and you say, I don't like the way that you're using that car. I don't have that right or authority. I sold it to you. It's yours to do it with as you please. And I appreciate everybody wanting to get along and to get together on this, but the property rights go to the one who owned the property, not the one who sold the property a long time ago. And I think it's wise for us to let the property owners do with the property what they see and envision, rather than former property owners. Nobody can come to you who sold you a car, Alderman Mosley, a decade ago, say, I don't like the way you're driving that car. I don't think you're taking care of it. I don't like the way, and ask for it back. No, they have the right to do that, but that's Alderman Mosley's car. And,
I'm more interested in the traffic.
Yes. Well, this will definitely help that in a big way. So, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Scott?
Yes, and while I appreciate that there are some issues outside of the content of this ordinance that hopefully will be worked out amenably among all of the parties, I move that we approve Ordinance 895.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve ordinance number 895. Is there any more discussion on that motion? Did you have anything,
No.
Alderman Anderson? You had your light on for a long time, and I didn't.
I wanted to move.
Okay. All right. If there's no other discussion on this item, Mr. Clerk, roll call vote.
Alderman Lewis.
Yes.
Alderman Scott.
Yes.
Alderman Vapurzian.
Yes.
Alderman Holt.
Yes.
Alderman Anderson.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Saunders.
Yes.
Alderman Mosley.
Yes.
Motion passes. You're welcome. Next item is the third reading of ordinance number 896, amending Chapter 70 of the Maumelle City Code. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
Being enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 896, an ordinance amending Chapter 70 subdivisions of the Maumelle City Code.
Okay, this is on third reading, and it's some corrections to the code to the alley ordinance specifically.
Make a motion for approval of Ordinance 896.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 896. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, Mr. Clerk, roll call vote.
Alderman Anderson.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Saunders.
No.
Alderman Mosley.
No.
Alderman Lewis.
Yes.
Alderman Scott.
Yes.
Alderman Vapurzian.
Yes.
Alderman Holt.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item is the third reading of ordinance number 897, amending Chapter 54 of the Maumelle City Code. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
And enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 897, an ordinance amending Chapter 54 Planning of the Maumelle City Code.
Motion to approve ordinance 897.
Second.
A motion to approve and a second of ordinance number 897. Is there a discussion on that motion? Alderman Holt?
Mr. Mayor, as a sponsor, I certainly will be voting in favor of this. At the last council meeting, I did make the statement I would appreciate just for all to hear one more time our city attorney to give an overview, chronological, where we started from, what was the issue, why the first two amendments that we've done, and then so that we'll know exactly what we're doing, we'll move on.
Okay. Mr. Holt, I think, or Alderman Holt, I think this is we're still on the amending the amendments right now. We're still on ordinance number 897. So,
I apologize.
Okay, so if we can hold that till the next one?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
I'm sorry.
All right, thank you. If there's no other discussion, Mr. Clerk, roll call vote.
Alderman Mosley.
No.
Alderman Saunders.
No.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Anderson.
Yes.
Alderman Lewis.
Yes.
Alderman Scott.
Yes.
Alderman Vapurzian.
Yes.
Alderman Holt.
Yes.
Ordinance passes. Moving on to the next item, which is the third reading of ordinance number 898, accepting dedication of the Garden Oaks alleys. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
Being enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 898, an ordinance accepting dedication of the alleys located in the Garden Oaks subdivision, waiving the requirements of the Maumelle City Code, Section 70-150B through D, declaring the city's intent to allocate funds to rehabilitate the alleys, naming the alleys, and further purposes.
Okay, I do have a public comment card on this item, and so at this time, I would like to hear from Mr. Rick, or we would like to hear from Mr. Rick Scott. If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Good, I can get out of here early. Rick Scott. I'm over on Panther Mountain Road. I don't
The
really.
address, please.
Pardon?
The address.
10502.
Thank you.
Welcome. Don't really have a dog in this fight, but got into some discussions on it, and I thought I would add a few things to you.
in case anybody's interested. One, just listening to the conversation, I've never heard of an alley being named. I've owned several properties that were adjacent to alleys, and alleys were all just alleys. The streets in front had names. The alleys were always just alleys, and there was a place for us kids to run up and down and pick up trash and take it back home and build stuff or irritate our parents, one or the other. You've never done that. Most of you have never had a house that had an alley. Handy places, really. We're going back a little bit to evil developers. By rights, none of the houses that I've ever owned, evil developers, you know them, none of the houses that I've owned adjacent to alleys have I had anything to do with the alley. It has always been a case where the alley was owned by the city and they maintained it. Ever so often they might even actually pave that alley. It depends on how much money and who all had lived adjacent to the alley, whether they wanted to put up some money for it or not, or encourage the city to vote some money for it. But it was always the city that took care of it. It was the city's responsibility. They ran their garbage trucks up and down there, and that was access to the utilities and so forth. And, of course, in the modern way of doing it, we did away with the alleys for a lot of reasons, some good and some bad. But the city's always owned them. So I would say if you folks are looking at the city taking over, that's probably a good thing, and that's what people expect. Of course, you have the problem of people coming in here from California. We don't do things like California does. And they're probably figuring that out now. You'd come in and you'd expect an alley, for Lord's sake, to be taken care of by the city, wouldn't you? And, of course, that's not necessarily the case because it depends on what the developer did. There's nobody in the city necessarily saying, wait a minute, whoa, you got to take care of this. Is this, you're going to take care of it? You're going to set up a fund to take care of it? You're going to set up a property owners association? Or are you going to turn this over to the city and then we get a chance to say whether we want to take care of it or not? That's supposed to happen at the time the development is taken care of. One could argue and debate why that wasn't taken care of, but you've got some other little places around here that nobody seems to actually own. Some walkways that haven't been dedicated and some other things that probably the city ought to be looking at and taking care of. And I could talk about cemeteries. I'm not, because I'll talk about that later. But again, you have things that the city, and I'm glad to see the city's taking action to say, oh, we're going to do the right thing and take care of this. Because we have some other little pieces of property laying around here where we could do the right thing and take care of. Right? Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions? Go sit down, right? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Okay.
We're waiting for a motion.
No. Alderman Vapurzian?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Ordinance 898.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on ordinance number 898. Is there any discussion on that motion? Alderman Vapurzian?
Understanding that I think we all know where everybody sits on this, and we've talked about it for 4 months, and there's been a lengthy discussion, and there's been a long time that we've spent on this, hours. I would move and make a motion, offer a motion that we would vote immediately on this. I do want to hear City Attorney Norris what you prepared for Alderman Holt so we could get a plan on this, but voting immediately would end discussion so that we could just go ahead and vote immediately on this. I think we've pretty much all said all that can be said, and I respect everyone's opinion on it, and I think we know where everyone stands on that. So I'd like to offer that motion, that we vote immediately on that.
A second.
We have a motion and a second that we vote immediately on ordinance number 898. Is there any discussion on that motion only?
Do we have any other public comment?
Do not. Not on this item. Alderman Mosley?
I don't know that we had any more discussion anyway. I wasn't going to say anything, but I'll vote no because I think if somebody wants to discuss, we ought to discuss.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If there's no other discussion, we have a motion on the floor to vote immediately on the alleyways, but I think there was a caveat added that we need to hear from City Attorney Norris, though. Yes.
I was hoping you would end my discussion.
No, I want to hear yours. Yours is worthy.
Okay.
First of all, that motion needs to be passed by a 2/3 majority, just FYI.
Let's vote on that and then.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. All right. So is that a roll call vote or is that a voice vote? Voice?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, a motion and a second has been made to vote on this immediately. All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes. Yes.
Any opposed, say no.
No.
That's 6-2, I believe. Okay. Mr. Norris. Now, that's not for the alleys.
They just don't want to hear people talk.
Do a little dance here first.
Maybe he was clapping for you.
It is hard for me to tell this story chronologically because there's so much that is confusing, or there's conflicting stories about what happened originally. It might be easier just to talk about briefly the state that we're currently in and the actions that the council have taken and are considering. First, the city council asked me to come up with, well, the mayor and I to come up with a plan to rehabilitate the alleys, as well as to determine whether or not we could, and if we could, how we could get the ability to spend public funds to repair that alley. The long and short of my opinion was that the alleys had been dedicated to the city, but that the city had never accepted it by an ordinance, which is a requirement of state law, that the city council has to accept it by ordinance. So essentially that's what we've been working toward, is to have the city accept it. However, there are some provisions in our code, no longer because those ordinances have passed, that prevented or set certain requirements that must be met before the city council could accept it, such as posting a bond, making sure the alleys were built up to code, et cetera, et cetera. We've now amended the code to allow the city council to accept dedication of that, and that's where we're at right now. Hopefully that addressed the questions you had, Alderman Holt.
Yes, I for the purpose of the audience, as Alderman Van Brusand has said, we've talked about it to the point of nauseum, but I wanted everybody else to have a chance to understand what we're doing.
All right, thank you. We did have a motion to vote immediately, so Mr. Clerk, if you roll call vote to approve ordinance number 898.
Alderman Anderson?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Saunders?
Yes.
Alderman Mosley?
No.
Alderman Lewis?
Yes.
Alderman Scott?
Yes.
Alderman Vapurzian?
Yes.
Alderman Holt?
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance 898 passes.
Now you can clap. Now you can clap.
You're welcome. Next item is third reading of ordinance number 899, amending the master street plan. Mr. Clerk, if you want to read that.
Being enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 899, an ordinance amending the master street plan for the City of Maumelle, Arkansas.
This is amending the master street plan to allow a connection to be done if someone wants to do it between Counts Massey and Country Club Parkway.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we accept ordinance 899.
A motion and a second to accept ordinance number 899. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, Mr. Clerk, roll call vote.
Alderman Holt?
Yes.
Alderman Vapurzian?
Yes.
Alderman Scott?
Yes.
Alderman Lewis?
No.
Alderman Anderson?
Yes.
Alderman Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Saunders?
Yes.
Alderman Mosley?
Yes.
Motion passes. And y'all are free to leave if y'all would like to leave. Y'all don't have to stay here for the rest of the meeting.
What? Oh.
All right, moving on to new business. We have Resolution 2016-01 entering into a contract of obligation. Mr. Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
Resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, Pulaski County, Arkansas, Resolution Number 2016-01, a resolution entering into a contract of obligation.
Okay, this is, we did this back in March of last year, this exact same contract and everything. but the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality redid some of their rules and regulations in September of last year, and so now we're required to post $5,500 for a closure of our transfer station instead of $5,000 that we had done previously. The $5,500 is already in the 2016 budget, so that's already there. It's not ever. We don't plan to spend that $5,500 because it's there only for post-closure. So it's only, you'd have to pay it if we closed down our transfer station and didn't do the requirements that were required by Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality. So it's $5,500 sitting in an account that should never be spent is the way we look at it. So, but we do have to enter into a new contract with ADEQ.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2016-01.
Second.
We have a motion and a second that the council approve resolution number 2016-01. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion passes.
Unanimous.
Next item is the council meeting protocol, and we included in the council packet the excerpt out of the City and Town magazine where it talks about that the first meeting of each year the council is supposed to set their organization and how they're going to do everything for that year, basically, is what you're supposed to do. So it sets the agendas for the meeting and how you file resolutions and ordinances and citizen commentary. And so, therefore, that's what we're doing right now. But what I want to point out is why we also included it in the packet is our order of business for our council meeting is set as code. It's part of our city code, and it states what order you go in and how we function, basically. And it goes on to tell that we do follow Robert's Rules of Orders and that thing. So I don't think it's necessary that we do this other than just make the council aware of it. And if you want to change something, I do feel like it'd take an ordinance to change Section 2-64 of our city code, I believe is what would have to occur on that item. Now, there's always things that, I mean, when it just says public comment, it doesn't say, it says it's at the start of the meeting. If you want to just move that to the end, I think we'd have to take a ordinance to change that. So that's what I was saying is we'd have to change it. Now, what it doesn't tell us is what, how to deal with certain things like a resolution. And what I'm bringing up is in our budget discussions, we talked about budget resolutions to have some kind of introduction or something like that. And then if the council wanted to table it so that there could be 3 readings on a budget resolution. I don't think that's a requirement that has to be made here, but that's something that we talked about during budget meetings. And so I guess we're trying to get a little bit of the council's persuasion or what their consensus is. Is that what they want to see for budget resolutions, I guess? Alderman Lewis?
I do like the idea of an introduction. That way it's not just bearing down on us, as was noted during our budget meetings, with maybe 3 days notice, 4 days, whenever the packet comes out. 3 readings, sometimes that gets a bit exhaustive. Plus, we can have provisions in there to waive those, I would imagine, if we had in case an emergency where we had to spend some dollars. We could put such things in place. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
No, all I was going to say, even if we do an ordinance introduction, I mean, the council could choose at that meeting, I assume, to go ahead and vote on it if they choose to do that. I mean, we just have it listed there as an item to read, basically. Or not to read, but to have on the record.
I'm receptive to other thoughts that other aldermen might have on the issue, but the main thing is that we have something to where I think we avoid that 3-day window where we've got discretionary budget item that's bearing down on us, which is either $40,000 or $175,000 or $80,000, whatever the case may be. Sometimes I think those are very difficult votes in many respects.
And like I say, in the case of emergency, if it's an ice storm or something like that, that we need to purchase something or do something for, I think we could waive those requirements.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Anderson?
I'm not opposed and actually open to the idea of having an introduction. I think we all kind of discussed that. I do want to make sure that we don't hinder ourselves from, if we did as a council decide to go ahead and vote on that item, that we can do it. But this just gives us the option of having more time to think about that. So I don't want to hinder ourselves in saying that we can't vote on it that first night, but I like the idea of an introduction.
Okay. Alderman Mosley?
I like it too. I like everything Alderman Lewis said.
Yeah.
Alderman Lewis?
Could it be put into the rules where if we decided to proceed after an introduction and vote that evening, where it would be required to have a supermajority with 2/3 of the council in approval?
I think something like that would need to be done by an ordinance.
Okay.
So there's several ways that this could take place. It could take place just by general consensus, and then the mayor introduces it before it's actually run. It could take place by a motion, or I think something that strong ought to be done by an ordinance. And I'm not 100% sure it can be done, but I'm pretty sure it can. It's something I could look into to confirm.
I mean, we're at the start of the year. If we have to go through the ordinance process to reach something like that, I think it could be beneficial. I'd be curious if you've got any thoughts on that, Alderman Mosley. I know.
I'm for that. Okay. I think that's good.
Okay.
There's one thing I just thought of, and I hope you mention it.
Oh, no. Let's see.
Absences?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
If we have an emergency, and we have absences, then
that's a good point.
We would hinder ourselves, and that's what I was talking about. I don't want to get us into unintended consequences where we hinder the city doing what they need to do, to pay for overtime, to clear roads during the storms and things like that.
I have to think on it a little more.
Yeah. I also, on the back end, if we have an ordinance that we're not sure about, we can postpone that vote. That's we have the ability to do that. So it's not like we didn't already have that at our disposal to say, oh, you know what, as a council, and we didn't have to have a supermajority to do that, do we?
No.
So we still have that at our disposal. I think just this introduction just helps with transparency. It helps with giving us a little more breathing room. And I don't think we need to do much more than that, unless we find that it needs to have a little more weight to it. Okay. I say let's take baby steps.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Saunders?
Thank you, Mayor. I think I was going to say about the same thing you did. I'm not in favor of the supermajority. I do think it's all upside on an introduction. Nothing to be lost here. So I'm strongly in favor of that.
Okay. So my plan right now is if we have a budget resolution is to bring it forward as an introduction the first time. And then after that, it's up to the council what they choose to do with it. Going forward this year. Now, we may come in and say this is one of those that we need to move forward if we can. So, but we'll let y'all know. And what we'll probably do is, it's just like when we typically tell you on an ordinance, we're going to request a second and third reading. We can even put that in the agenda where we can say that we're going to request this to be voted on tonight because, and try to give a reason in there also.
And I think let's draw this distinction now, unless somebody's got a different opinion or I'm missing something. There is a very distinctive difference between a budget resolution and doing an introduction, or a resolution where we tell Academics Plus Charter School or somebody, congratulations on winning something, that sort of thing. I mean,
it's only going to be budget amendments.
Yeah,
right.
Budget amendments.
So ceremonial or recognition things, I see no need to do that. So, okay.
And I got a little bit of a dilemma here. Mr. Ralph Kearney turned in a public comment card, but he turned it in after we did public comment on the items not on the agenda.
I can wait till the next meeting.
Well, and that's what I wanted to tell you is, and I think if the status is correct, but it says exit to I-40 status from Maumelle Boulevard. You're talking about exit from Counts Massey, or
from wherever it's supposed to go.
Okay. All right.
I-40. What is the status? All I want to know is the status.
Well, Alderman Mosley has requested something in writing on that. I'd hope to have it for this meeting to pass out. I've had a personal issue at my house that's taken a lot of my time the last 3 or 4 days, and so I haven't done that, but I hope to have it at the next meeting. That's my plan, is to have a written one for you. So, yeah, so if you can wait till the next meeting, that'd be great, because well, I can give you a written one that's been requested by one of the aldermen. So,
Okay.
all right. Moving on to mayor's comments, we did have flooding at Park on the River, as some people have now termed it as Park under the River, but only a portion of it was under the river. But we did sustain some damage to the park. The privacy fence is 90% down, so we have the chance to turn it around now.
Yeah.
so there's always a silver lining in everything, you know.
Stain it.
And stain it, maybe. Right now, we need to dry it out.
Oh man.
Do you know where they're at?
See if I can.
Dad, Jay, community photos.
You got a photograph of it?
I do have several photographs. I took some today, but I don't have them. More of it's down, but. And then also the dock has experienced some damage. We don't know completely yet because part of it's still underwater. The end, it's still there. It's still there, and then we held it with the cables and all that. And also what we've experienced is washouts around some of the trees. I guess the current was going around the trees and then eddying on the downstream side and created a whirlpool of type effect, and it brought out some of the silt and everything.
I have to apologize, Mayor. The drive is not mapped on this computer, so I can't access it. But.
All right, I can pass my phone around now, but it's it got about well, you could not get on any of the level part. I mean, the water got up to the slope of the drive as you go down in the lower part down there, and there's an orange paint mark on it, and so we actually closed the lower part of the park from Tuesday of last week we closed it. And it may be open today. I'm not sure if they opened it back up this afternoon or not, but the water is completely off of the pavement today. It's still on the lower part, on the lower ends down there. But the flooding actually started Tuesday of last week, and then it crested on Saturday. And I don't, did you find it or not?
No.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Sorry.
So we'll try to find a way where we can link some of these. They're too big to send out, and I actually thought about sending some out, but we'll do something. At least get y'all a couple of pictures so you can see what happened. Also, I do want to just remind you that our next meeting will be Tuesday, January the 19th, not on Monday. So it's Martin Luther King holiday on the 18th. So our council meeting will be on Tuesday in 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks. And then the only other thing I wanted to say is I want to thank our firefighters and the MEMS people that came to my house. My wife did have an accident over the last week, and very thankful that they got there quickly and everything. And the 911 dispatcher did a great job, and then I look up and the fire's there. So just want to commend them for their service to our community. Planning Commission report, that'll be done at the next meeting. Well, no, it won't. It won't actually be done until the first meeting in February because of the scheduling of the December Planning Commission meeting. Alderman's comments? Alderman Lewis?
One thing I wanted to sort of challenge us all to think about, and I'm going to say this and then I'm going to sort of quickly clarify. I do believe that our world is experiencing climate change, but I think our world has always experienced climate change, and I don't necessarily think that we have some great power to where we can stop it or start it, but we are seeing some things, climatologically speaking, that are important to note. We're in an El Nino process right now. We've had 2 events where the river has crested pretty high inside of 12 months. So all the more reason we are a river community that we need to continue to think about alternative ways out of Maumelle. And I know we're working on one path, but I don't think that means we should stop there. we can continue to look at other processes and other paths, because this time we almost saw Crystal Hill Road go underwater as well. It came pretty close. We need those other options, I think, down the line. As time changes, it might hopefully not be a factor for another 50 years, but then again, it could. I think some of those projections about a 50-year flood or a 100-year flood, that may not mean much, especially with some of the changes we're seeing around the world. So I want to challenge us all right here in the here and now that hopefully 10, 20 years if something happens, people look back and say they thought ahead and they did what they had to do to better our lives and make sure that we had other options. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Holt?
Let me right quick lock on to what Alderman Lewis has said. I think that is certainly a key item, but I think that we should look forward to expanding an entire network of what we here in Maumelle do in case there are a variation of activities, whether we had our CERT group and that kind of thing needs to be put back into force with people that are capable, will do whatever. We never know what can happen. So anyway, I concur, and I think that should be one of 10 different areas that we need to do in case whatever happens here at Maumelle, that we can take care of ourselves. While I was going to the up to Springdale, I had gone to the police department and asked them to check on the house. I got the report this week, and I desperately appreciate the kindness of our police force. They do indeed come by. They will tell you exactly what time and how often. So we owe much appreciation to our police people. I didn't have anybody to put down as to who immediate contact, so the chief said, "You put mine on there. They'll contact me." So I appreciate that, and he did. So thanks to our police department.
Thank you, Alderman Holt. Alderman Mosley?
Yeah, my house actually backs up to an inlet from the Arkansas River, and it got about 3 or 4 feet higher than it did in the spring. From where I marked it, and it went down to where it was last time, and it was about 3 or 4 feet. And I lost a picnic table in that previous flood, and it floated back this time. So I got my picnic table back. And,
the Lord giveth and the Lord.
I also wanted to make a compliment to an Officer Poole with our police department. I witnessed him giving out some good advice to a homeowner that's at the lowest part of our street. He had water that was 3 to 4 feet right below where it would come up onto his pool deck and then into his house. And his dock had broken loose, and he advised him to let it go, not try to go out there and get it with a canoe or anything like that. He gave out good advice. So anyway, that's all I had. Thank you. There you go.
And that's something we need to remember, is that a lot of that stuff is just property, and you don't want to risk a life to do something like that. And just because it was on the news, some gentlemen in Oklahoma went out on a windy lake and both of them drowned, because of just bad weather, So that river, at 70,000, it can do some crazy things to your boat. At 420,000, it's 5 times, 6 times what it normally is flow. Or that's small craft wings. Normal's 40,000, so it's 10 times what it normally flows. So you can get in trouble really fast on those things. Logs were coming down that river, looked like 10 or 15 miles an hour, seemed like, through there. And even through the chute that y'all live on over there, and that's not normally got that big a current coming through there.
Have any current.
Any current, yeah, normally. So, yeah. All right. Mr. City Attorney has comments.
I am passing out a rough draft of a sign ordinance that the goal is to have it on first reading next meeting. This will not come to you in that same form that you see it for several reasons. 1, I will make changes. 2, you will contact me with your suggested changes. And 3, staff will be reviewing it as well to get some of their feedback. But I already know some things that are going to change, but it should give you a good idea of the fundamental changes that we're seeing. So please review this. Please look at our current ordinances. find things in this you do or don't like, find things in the current code that may be repealed by this ordinance, let me know, give me your feedback, and we'll make sure that when it comes to first reading, it matches what the council wants to see in a sign ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what if you get 8 opinions of what it's
Well,
supposed to say?
then there will be at least 8 changes.
Okay, all right. Mr. City Clerk?
Our statements of financial interest will be due at the end of the month. The mayor reminded me, I meant to get those out to you today and didn't do it, but we'll be sending them to you, and those will come back to my office. So I'll get those out to you.
Only other thing I want to point out is that the sales tax reports are in the back, and it's for the full year. And just, and I'm, I hate to make mistakes, but in 2015, the city sales tax came in at $2,281,232.15. We budgeted $2,160,000, so we came in at $121,000 over what we budgeted for city sales tax. And then on the county sales tax, it came in at $3,659,395.17, and we budgeted for $3,510,000, which is an increase of $149,000. So approximately $270,000 in additional sales tax revenue in 2016, more than we budgeted. So that should help with well, not the deficit necessarily, but what we have to take out of fund balance in order to balance the budget is more what I'm saying there. So, yeah. Nothing else. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So offered.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes.
Well done, fellow aldermen.
It was definitely under an hour and a half.
Huh?